Hi, everybody. Welcome to 2023. Happy New Year. I hope that you are all well and that you are having a wonderful, wonderful time. I hope that you can hear me and that everything is going as you would like it to be. Thank you very much. There is a dapper scarf. The reason I have a dapper scarf is I was working out this morning and lifting some weights, and I have pulled a muscle in my neck, and it's very painful. So if I look a little bit fancy and swish today, it's primarily because my neck is really, really bad and hurting a lot. But there we are. Welcome to 2023, as I said earlier. Our original plan for Transport Evolved for today was to publish a video talking about the things that we were going to be looking forward to this year. Unfortunately, without going into too many details, the holiday season kind of sucked in the Gordon-Bloomfield household in terms of best laid plans of mice and men did indeed gang off the glay. And we were a little bit off the beaten track in terms of our schedule. Everything that we had planned to happen did not happen, and everything that we had not planned for happened. And so we spent the majority of our holiday, instead of me being able to do a little bit of work in the side, focusing on other things. And as a consequence, the video that I was going to produce and publish today has not happened. Additionally, our clip show didn't happen and our roundup didn't happen. We had a power cut. People were stuck. We had a major ice storm. We had snow. It was a bit bonkers there for a bit. But I figured now would be a great time to have a live stream with you all. And the first thing I want to do today is I would like to thank everybody who has supported Transport Evolved on Patreon. We did a really we've done an amazing thing. We reached our milestone on, I think it was Friday last week. We did a live stream and we reached our milestone, and I was able to pay everybody, with the exception of myself, just from our Patreon donations this month. So thank you, everybody, for supporting that. Also, if you hear a weird noise in the background, we have a 3D printer printing some stuff for a future video that we're going to be doing, talking about 3D printing in the EV world and energy world. And so there's some things being printed in the corner that I had forgotten that I'd started off when I decided to make this live stream happen. So I'm pretty sure that the microphone is not picking it up, but there we go. It's all good. It's all good. Well, you know, we had multiple family members in different states have gigantic redwoods fall on our houses. I hear you on chaotic holidays. Alida, I am sorry that happened. I am not going to complain about my holidays anymore. I think you probably had the worst one. The worst we had was the ice storm and losing power, and the Ford F-150 did amazingly, and we managed to do everything that we wanted to. Environmental Canadian, Happy New Year, Nikki. Love you and love your channel. Peace, Calvin. Right back at you. Thank you so much. If you would all like to support the channel, it's really easy to do. Head to patreon.com/Transport Evolved. If you sign up right now while we're doing our live stream, you will get a special mention from me. I am bringing up the Patreon membership list right now. I would love to expand the support that Transport Evolved has this year from our Patreon crew. It will reduce a lot of stress on our end and make the world a lot easier for us to cover. I would also like to increase everybody's salaries a bit this year, because rent in the Portland area is going up quite dramatically, and I would like my staff to not have to worry about such things. All right, so 2022 was not the year that we hoped for in the EV world. At least I don't think so. There were lots of things that happened that made this year more difficult. We had issues with battery pack availability. The price that companies pay for lithium-ion battery packs went through the roof. As Bloomberg New Energy Finance reported at the tail end of last year, the prices for batteries got more and more expensive. Thank you very much, Derek. A little love for 2023. We are always grateful for some love for 2023. Thank you very much. If you want to follow Derek's example and give us a super thanks or a shout out on the live stream, you can do that as Derek did just there. So battery prices went up in 2022. And that meant that a lot of EVs that we wanted to be more affordable went the opposite way. They became more expensive. A classic example of that is the Ford F-150 Lightning. The entry-level version of that truck last year debuted. The Ford F-150 Lightning Pro, the standard range battery pack, originally launched with an official MSRP of $39,000 and change. $40,000 by the time you paid for your delivery fees and your licensing and everything else, but $40,000 for a work truck that was capable of carrying 2,000 pounds, that was capable of towing up to 7,500 pounds. That was a really good proposition for a lot of people. Unfortunately, because of those battery pack prices going up and up and up, by the end of last year, the price of that very same truck had risen by more than 15,000 US dollars. We saw it also in other ways as well. Let me see if I can adjust this. Please give me a second. I will be right back. Let me see if that works a little bit better. I apologize. Let's try again. Thank you for telling me, Martin, that the sound was off for some reason. Even though I selected this microphone at the start of the show, it defaulted to my computer microphone there. You should be able to hear me a lot better now. Somebody says worse. Let's give it a few seconds and we'll see if perfect sound now. Great. All right. So the battery price of EVs went up. That meant that the price of EVs went up. We saw Tesla put up its prices. We saw everybody put up their prices. There's only a few companies that actually reduced the prices of their vehicles, and they were mainly as a result of decontenting them. That term meaning removing features that were previously considered standard fit items for a particular trim and then removed. Thank you. Sounds so much better. I am so much happier that you like the fact that it sounds so much better. I do apologize. That was very unprofessional of me. I will try and make sure that this gets set up presumably in the future. It should be set as a preference in my streaming software, but it keeps defaulting to using the built-in microphone on my iMac for some reason. I am sorry about that. Anyway, so battery prices went up. Prices of EVs went up. There were a few changes. We also saw that a lot of EVs lost features. Again, Ford F-150 Lightning. I'm sorry to use that twice, but it lost heated seats. It lost a lot of the fancy stuff like the onboard scales disappeared because Ford couldn't get the parts, and I think also Ford wanted to make sure that its price increase was not as massive as it would have been had it left those features in. So it removed features, pushed the price up a little bit to compensate for the more expensive battery. But you know, it is the way it is. Derek says, "Why are you so hard on yourself? Relax. I will. I promise." All right. So if you want to join the show and you want to support the show, head to patreon.com/transport evolved. Thank you to those of you who are signing up and supporting. All right, so 2022, difficult year. Obviously, Elon buying Twitter and doing all of that stuff also had an impact on Tesla. Tesla has just released its Q4 2022 delivery figures, and it is a record 405,000 vehicles in the fourth quarter of last year, which no doubt will make the price of Tesla stock start to rise tomorrow. Obviously, here in North America, today is a day off. We would call it a bank holiday in the UK. It's a federal holiday here because New Year fell on a Sunday, so they kind of give you an extra day off. And so trading doesn't officially start. The first day of trading tomorrow on the New York Stock Exchange will be tomorrow morning. And I predict that Tesla share price will finally start to go up on the back of this good news from Tesla achieving 405,000 vehicle sales and deliveries last
quarter. However, I don't think Tesla prices are going to go up to the levels that they were last year until everything sorts itself out with regard to Elon Musk, and that is an unknown. And I'm not going to make huge predictions regarding Elon Musk and his position at Tesla. I think shareholders and the board, unless he modifies some of the things that he's doing outside of Tesla and the way he's behaving outside of Tesla, I think there will be some tough conversations made, and I expect shareholder motions to be pushed for him to be replaced and or step down. I also, though, think that a lot of Tesla shareholders are very loyal to Tesla and the brand, and so therefore I think things will continue the way I am. So it's great to see so many people here. I just want to give a quick shout out to wonderful Ben Nelson, who is another YouTube content creator. If you don't subscribe to Ben, you should. He's at 300 mpge, I think is his website. .org. Is that correct, Ben? I'm doing that off the top of my head. Benjamin's just about to buy a 2023 Chevrolet Bolt EV tomorrow. And he's going to be working on he's going to have a juice box installed, or he already has one. And he's also going to be, we were having a chat offline this morning about him using the Home Assistant, which is an open source, free to use home automation system that you can run on a Raspberry Pi. He's going to use that to tie in his N-phase inverters, which most people who have solar, who don't have a Tesla solar system, probably have an N-phase microinverter, and will use the data from that to then control how quickly his EV charges using the using the juice box and the direct connection to that and the integration with Home Assistant. It's great. I have that for my house, and it's a really great way. And Home Assistant has recently added if-then statements for its scripting. So it's super comprehensive. And it means you can finally go, hey, if the electrical grid, if the carbon dioxide output of the electrical grid is above this figure, and my solar panels are not producing more than this amount, then turn down or turn off my charging. But if I'm producing excess solar, ramp it up, so you know that your EV is charged on sunlight. I think it's going to be a great project. I cannot wait to see what Ben does with that, and I hope that we will see a video on that, Ben. So I hope that we will be doing that, and we might be getting an electric tractor, which Ben has got plenty of experience with. One of you kind people has offered to get us an Electrac, and so Ben, I'm going to be pumping you for information, I think, on that as well. So anyway, I just wanted to do that very quickly. Ben says I'll definitely be making videos about it. That is great to see. All right, so we have lots of cool stuff to look forward to this year in the EV world. We've got a whole list of EVs that are due to launch this year. Obviously the Volvo EX90, high-end, high ticket price. I'm not going to be super excited about that in terms of mainstream affordability, but Volvo does make pretty good cars, and I cannot wait to see what that is. Related to that car is the Polestar 3, which we're going to see in Q4 of this year. Again, another big crossover. It's not going to be popular for everybody, and in terms of pricing, it's going to be a little bit on the more expensive side, but we're going to see that this year. Of course, also talking about big, expensive, maybe slightly over-the-top vehicles, the Cybertruck, the Tesla Cybertruck, is due to come out this year. The Cybertruck is a vehicle that is going to divide, I think, a lot of people. It's going to be interesting to see how many people actually follow through with their Cybertruck order. I've been talking to a lot of people lately on Mastodon, and I know that Mastodon, if you are on Mastodon, you've probably left Twitter because you're not supportive of what's been going on there under Elon Musk. And so I just want to check my 3D printer. It nearly broke the cable. I think if you are on Mastodon, the chances are that you are somebody who is kind of not supportive of what Elon's been doing at Twitter. And so therefore you may be more likely to no longer want to own a Tesla or a Cybertruck. So that's just kind of the disclaimer there. But I've been talking to a lot of people who do not appear to be wanting to buy that Cybertruck after all. They are kind of pivoting towards other options available on the market. Ford has managed to price itself out of the market. Lots of people who were supporting a Ford, wanting to buy a Ford F-150 Lightning, are now turning around and going, sorry, the price is too expensive. And I'm kind of a little bit... I'm a little bit disappointed that Ford put the price up the way it did, and I think it has priced itself out of the market. I know, for example, if I hadn't purchased the Ford F-150 Lightning when I did, there's no way that I could afford one now. And when we're paying a huge amount of money. And by the way, I just want to reiterate here, the Ford F-150 Lightning, because something from last year, a lot of people thought that we were using Patreon donations to buy the Ford F-150. That is not the case. I didn't pay myself very much last year at all. And the Ford F-150 Lightning is almost exclusively funded by my partner's salary. My partner works for a company. She's in a managerial role. She's on a reasonably decent salary, and we were in a position where we could juggle some of our finances to make sure that we could afford the F-150 Lightning. It was a struggle to make sure that we could afford the F-150 Lightning, but it was something that we purchased ourselves personally. So not really connected to this, even though I'm using it for Transport Evolved. So Cybertruck, I think, is going to be a very divisive vehicle. Is it going to happen before the end of the year? I think we're going to see deliveries in Q4. I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see the first Cybertrucks rolling off the line towards the end of the year. It's something Tesla's done in the past. Q3, Q4, when we see those first vehicles arrive. And I think it's probably going to be 2024 before we start to see huge numbers of vehicles rolling off the production line. So, thank you very much, Your Citizen. Thanks for a fantastic 2022, and I can't wait to see for what we see in 2023. Me neither. Thank you very much. Very kind of you. I do appreciate your support, as does the rest of the team. Cybertruck has been due to come out for the last 3 years, says Marcus. You're very right. However, this year we do actually have some proof that Tesla is now in pre-production status. We've seen those gigantic presses arrive at Tesla's Gigafactory in Texas. We're starting to see kind of signs of more production intent development going on. Obviously, there's still some unanswered questions. I still don't see how the Cybertruck is going to pass all of the required tests. Although, again, we should note, because the Tesla Cybertruck is so humongous, just like the F-150 Lightning, just like the Hummer EV, the crash test standards that those vehicles need to satisfy in order to be certified for use on the road are very different to your average passenger car. And it's one reason why these companies are starting to make more and more massive, huge vehicles, because they don't have to have quite as many tough crash test standards. Excuse me, I'm just having some water. It's one of the things I'm trying to do more of this year. Have water. I realized that I owned one of these. I don't know where I got it from. I was given a smart water bottle at one of the events I went to last year, and I'm afraid I can't remember who gave it to me. But now I'm using it because it actually records my water input, and I'm actually making sure that I'm hydrated, which helps with muscle development, helps with weight loss, and all these other things. All right, so onwards and upwards. Connected with Tesla, although not really a vehicle that we're going to see this year, is there's hints of a new Tesla platform. We might see an Investor Day this year. Electra, I think, reported this today or yesterday, saying that there is a new Tesla platform being developed, and we will probably see an Investor Day sometime this year to discuss that platform. I don't think we're going to see it yet. I don't think we're going to see it this year. I don't expect we will see it next year either. It's interesting. Anonymous Freak says, got his Rivian last year, cancelled his Cybertruck reservation, and Lightning order is still waiting for him to place it. Almost certainly not going to. Obviously, the Rivian R1T is a cracking truck. I think I've seen you driving around Portland in it, Anonymous Freak, and I know one of the channel's other good friends has just taken delivery of his Rivian R1T. He was a Chevrolet Bolt EV owner. His Rivian just arrived. I suspect I'm going to see it this coming weekend when I'm out of town. So very exciting. I'm not going to repeat this. The way Chris talks about everything. Well, okay. This is Chris from Aptera. It's an interesting one. Okay, let's talk about Aptera. I wasn't going to talk about Aptera yet, but Aptera's just revealed the Aptera has just revealed the design for the Delta production variant of the Aptera EV. It has been quite a journey for the company. I've always been very fond of Aptera based on how open they can be. I will agree that sometimes Aptera's engineering discussions come off as a little too sure of themselves, and I'm going to reserve judgment until I actually get to drive one. Having seen some of the vehicles come off the line lately, some of the pre-production vehicles, I'm still hearing a lot of rattles in Gamma and the videos I've seen that Aptera's put up of Gamma. I hope that Delta obviously solved that. It's going to be very exciting to see what happens looking forwards with that company. Will it enter into production this year? I think we might be lucky to see Aptera enter into production at the very end of this year. But I suspect it's going to be a few vehicles arriving at the end of the year. And I don't think, for example, we will be offered a chance to get one until next year, maybe the year after. I think it's going to be a fairly slow ramp up. I know that there's a great number of people who are involved with Aptera, great people. I still have a great deal of respect for Chris and also for the rest of the team at the company. Am I going to be buying an Aptera this year? I think it's time for me to say probably not. I still have a reservation. I would still very much like to own an Aptera. I'm still very much aesthetically wanting Aptera to succeed, and I want those cars to be on the road because they're efficient and they're pushing for something that's different in the EV world today. Efficient vehicles, efficient drivetrains. We don't have enough electric vehicles that are efficient and that are doing good in trying to be efficient and using solar energy. However, I think that there are lots of challenges that lay ahead for Aptera as a company. I don't think it's ever going to have mass market appeal, and as such, I think it's probably going to remain a niche automaker for some time to come. And I think that may cause it problems long term. I hope that I'm proven wrong. Will I own one? As I said, I probably won't, but that's more from a financial point of view. The F-150 Lightning was a vehicle we had to buy so that we could easily move the team and equipment to different places. We're going to make it safer for Michael to film our reviews. The Aptera would be a plaything, and I don't think that I can, at this point in time, afford it. And unlike a lot of YouTubers who are buying huge numbers of EVs and leveraging loans up to, stupidly high amounts in order to buy all these vehicles, we don't want to do that at this channel. Excuse me, I just need to adjust my neck here. We don't want to do that. So hopefully we'll see where it goes. Get where it goes from there. Thank you very much, your citizen, for becoming a new member of the channel. Thank you very much. Good job. All right. Okay. So I think there's some stuff going on in the chat. All right. So for those who know, Anonymous Freak, who's voicing his opinions on Aptera right now, and a recent video that Chris gave in which he may not have given the best impression. He was giving his personal opinions on it. He is a moderator in our chat room. He's not paid. He's a volunteer. And he's entitled to his own opinions. I think that is fine. I just want to let you know he's not he is not a I think some people are getting argumentative. Please do not get argumentative in the chat. Let's not spoil the start of the year. All right, so what else? So Aptera, I still want to own one. I don't think I'm going to be able to buy one. How about that? That's a good way of putting it, and I don't think it's the way that we are. Please don't make people put yourself in timeout. Let's also be in a situation. I'm just moving my chair down so I can sit down. Let's also allow ourselves to be in a position where we can have a discussion about automakers and for people to voice their opinions based on what they've thought without getting into the same kind of you're either with us or against us mentality that we've seen in the past from the Tesla world. Because I don't think that serves anybody. So it's perfectly okay to have concerns and to have concerns and air them about a company, as I just did, as somebody else did in the chat. But it doesn't mean that they're being slanderous. It's just their personal opinion based on what they saw. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. All right, so onwards and upwards. I'm leaving Aptera behind. Oh, there is other thing I want to say about Aptera. The move from Aptera to move to the Tesla charging standard is one that I'm not super happy about, because it means that when I'm on the road, I'm going to have to, if I do own an Aptera, I'm going to have to use a Tesla charging station. And right now, I personally do not want to support Tesla. That's my personal opinion. It doesn't mean that we're not going to cover Tesla. That's just my personal opinion versus my professional opinion. My professional opinion is the supercharger network is awesome. It is better than a lot of other networks out there, but I do not wish to give money to Tesla right now because of some of the stuff that Elon Musk has done. And it's okay for me to say that while also saying Tesla has a great charging network. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. I think it's important that we try and acknowledge that. All right. What else? Keep going. All right. So we are going to see three new EVs come to market this year from Chevrolet. We're going to see the Chevrolet Blazer EV. We're going to see the Silverado EV, and we're going to see the Equinox EV. Now, the first one to launch is going to be the Blazer EV, which is due in the summer of 2023. And I hope, fingers crossed, that we all get invited to the launch event. Something that happened more and more last year was, and we talked about this in the live stream last week. I don't want to reiterate that and kind of relitigate that. But we did get invited to fewer events last year because car companies were choosing to add outlets that would traditionally not have attended EV launches, but are now covering EVs, so they get precedent over us because they're bigger and badder. Or bigger and more muscular and whatever. So I hope that we get to see the Blazer EV come out. It's going to be based on the Ultium platform. I'm really excited to see how the Blazer EV compares to some of the other Ultium vehicles I've seen. I know that I wasn't super impressed with the Hummer EV, as many of you will have seen from our review. The Blazer EV, I think, is going to be a more tame, more sensible take on the Blazer. And so I would love to see that this year. I'm hoping that we can do that. The Equinox EV is due out in the fall of 2023. Again, the Equinox and the Blazer are going to be two very good, very competitively priced vehicles. They are aimed at a very competitive, very competitive pricing. I think if Chevrolet actually focuses on affordability and drivability rather than affordability in tech or affordability in the illusion of having a whole load of extra bells and whistles that are not actually going to be used by most people, I think that it will succeed. If Chevrolet, goes all out with here are the features you can subscribe to in your car, here are all of the extra bells and whistles, I think it's going to put some people off. Bear in mind, there are still people driving around today, friends of mine, family members, who will not use cruise control, either because they don't trust it or they don't really like it. There is a member of our team who hates cruise control because cruise control removes some of the manual driving pleasure of driving a car and also some of the control of driving a car. So bear in mind that if 50 years after cruise control started to become a fairly standard fit feature, people are still reluctant to use it, then do we need all of this extra bells and whistles in our cars? Probably not. I really hope that Chevrolet pays attention to that with the Blazer and the Equinox, but both due by fall this year. Also coming out this year from Chevrolet is the Silverado EV. Now, the Silverado EV is going to basically be the same as the Hummer EV in terms of its base unit, the platform that it's based on. We know that's going to be very powerful. It's going to have lots of torque. It's going to have lots of performance in a more affordable, more practical design with less of the off-road shenanigans that the Hummer EV had. And I think that's going to be another good vehicle. I think it's going to be very competitive. I think that is something that I would love to see more of from the company. More affordable cars, less focus on the high end. Jude says, I'm one of them. I don't quite get how to use it. I don't want to use it. I'm 64, might have something to do with it. That's kind of my point. I activate my comma 3 cruise control that anytime I'm on the road, it works well with. So, I am at the comma 3. We are getting a comma 3 this year. We're going to buy a comma 3 and putting in our Chevrolet Bolt. And it's going to be another year of we are, as a family, my partner and I are very heavily into the tech. We're happy to use the tech. We're happy to use the tech with the acknowledgement that we are in cutting edge and it is not necessarily always the best. Sorry, I'm just moving my neck because it's very stiff and it hurts a lot. But the majority of people, I think, are somewhere in the middle, right? They're okay with a little bit of cruise control, a little bit of advanced technology, but they don't want to do anything. They don't want to change the way they drive to make use of that technology. And that's a very different proposition. And I think a lot of the cars we saw this year were very much in you have to use the technology in the way we want it to do. Tom, again, very good comment there, Tom. I don't care for full self-driving, but cruise assist is fine with me. And I think that's where a lot of people are. Robert, thank you very much. All the best to the team in 2023. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. I'm not a fan of the cruise in my Leaf 40, says Sally Baba. It goes too far up people's rear, then slams on deceleration. Other cars without adaptive, I find I'm turning up and down constantly. It's interesting, isn't it? One of my continual observations of self-driving and full self-driving and cruise control and radar-assisted cruise control and ProPilot and Blue Cruise and all of these other systems is that they get too close to the car in front and they brake later than I would, which is not as comfortable as I think it is for me. Stefan says, I do not use cruise in all cars. My Leaf most of the time, but my mother has a Volvo XC90, never use cruise in that. So you kind of are proving my point, guys. I like that. Thank you. I just made an argument and you proved it to me. So thank you. All right. So Chevrolet, we've got those 3 excellent vehicles coming. Obviously, we've also got an associated vehicle in the GMC Denali EV, which is coming out next year as well. Again, it's the triplet in that Hummer Silverado family. And so it's effectively going to be the same car, but with GMC badging to make it feel a little bit more kind of upmarket. So you put the Silverado at the bottom, the GMC Denali in the middle, and then the Hummer EV right at the top in terms of over-the-top performance, balls to the wall stuff. But when we talk about luxury, the Hummer is going to switch around. Maybe the Hummer goes in the middle and the GMC goes at the top. Okay, more cars coming this year. BMW i5. I don't know a huge amount about this. Obviously, the i7 is technically out. I don't know if any deliveries have started of the i7. I've not seen any i7s on the road, but while I was driving a couple of months ago, I saw a whole convoy of BMW plug-in hybrids being driven. And some spy shots. And so it's going to be interesting to see what BMW does this year and what it promotes this year. The i5, I think, is going to be a good car. I have driven the i4 this year, was impressed with it. The iX was phenomenal, but very expensive. i5, obviously 5 Series sized vehicle. I'm excited to see what it's going to be like. I'm glad that BMW is continuing to push sedans rather than just making crossovers all the time. It's going to be out of the price range for a lot of people, but I think it's going to give Tesla some pause. I think it's going to go after that Model 3, Model S market. I think it's going to be great to see. i7 is out at least in Germany and Europe. Thank you very much for those of you who confirm that. I haven't seen any here. I know that they have done the press launch, and I know that there are press cars coming soon because we've requested one, but I haven't actually seen one out in the world. Another car that I'm really excited to see this year is Ford is working on a mid-size crossover that it's going to reveal for the first time in the spring. And I want to see that because I personally think that Ford has been one of the leaders in making electric cars that not only perform incredibly well, but are not so convoluted that people don't want to drive them because they're too tech filled. I know they have those massive center touchscreen displays, but the actual interaction of driving a Ford, it doesn't feel over the top techy. And I cannot wait to see this mid-size crossover that we know is coming. I think it's a result of a collaboration with Volkswagen. So really excited to see where that goes, because I've not been traditionally a huge fan of the more lower powered Volkswagen ID family. But when Volkswagen does all-wheel drive, it's a cracking proposition. So it's very exciting to see. Thank you very much. 258 i7 registered in Germany through the end of November. So yeah, there is some more. And as Anonymous Freak points out, iX is a ground up platform. That was people saying that BMWs are currently based on ICE platforms. Just because an automaker uses an ICE platform doesn't necessarily always mean it's a bad vehicle. I highlight the Genesis G80 electrified that we drove at the end of last year. It was actually a very comfortable, well-driving vehicle, and I think it's going to be good. Your citizen has a question. What role do you expect car-to-car communications play in the world of FSD and the techification of modern vehicles? I think car-to-car communications will happen, and I don't think it's going to happen beyond make and model specific vehicles yet. I think that's something for the future. Excuse me, let me move my chair a little bit here. I think that's something we're going to see in the future. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think it's going to be something that we're going to see long term, but like everything else, like full self-driving, all these other things, I think we're going to see more legislation, more investigations, and that's something I'm going to come to later in this live stream when we're talking about some of our predictions for the year. I hope the software will be done by Ford for the Volkswagen and Ford. Yeah, me too. So Marcus says, I'm not a fan of the Ford central display solution. The menus are more intuitive and less convoluted than with Tesla, but still less usable without having to take eyes off the road. Totally agree with you there. I tend to ignore that touchscreen display and just use it for mapping most of the time. I would like Ford to put more energy into making better useful voice controls, or maybe more interaction with existing systems and smartphones. All right, so talking about Ford, there was something else I was going to say about Ford, and I cannot remember what it was. So that's, oh yeah, there's another Ford pickup, a bigger Ford electrified pickup that's coming. I say electrified because I don't know if it's going to be plug-in hybrid or battery electric, but I suspect it's going to be all electric. I've heard some rumors, and that is about as far as I can go with that. Also coming here, I've got a long list of vehicles here. Also coming this year, the Fiat 500e Abarth, which is a phenomenally exciting proposition. I am a Fiat 500e fan. I've considered owning one of the original Fiat 500es. Michael here at the channel, that's his desk behind me. He used to own a Fiat 500 Turbo until some idiot smashed into him, and he was involved in a hit and run. And Stella, his Fiat 500 Turbo, was written off. Frankly, I still don't know how the guy survived, because I saw the aftermath, and someone came out of a T-junction. He was parked on one side of the road. Someone came out of a junction too quickly, braked, kind of did effectively the equivalent of a parking brake, handbrake turn, smashed into him and carried on and didn't stop. And had he been hit a little bit further over, the A-pillar took all of the brunt of the damage, and the whole front end of the car was twisted. Had it been just a little bit further back, I suspect he would have been in a wheelchair, and I've told him as much. But the Fiat 500e Abarth is coming this year. I'm super excited about it. Not super excited about the noise. That fake noise engine thing that the whole of Fiat and Jeep and Chrysler are working on. I'm not a huge I'm not a huge fan of that, to be honest. Really not a huge fan of that noise, but would love to drive one and try it out. Also, and it's not really this year, it's going to be next year that it launches, but this year we're going to finally get the details for the North American market version of the Fiat 500e, which I think is going to get some upgrades to make it applicable with US crash test standards, and also applicable with everything else. Super excited to see that vehicle, super excited to see what happens, and hopefully we'll get a chance to drive it. And of course, if I get invited on the press launch for that, Michael will be coming too, otherwise he might quit. I'm just saying. All right, please excuse me while I try and sort out my neck here. Is it my old hearing, or is there some 3D printer working in the background? Yes. I think you may have missed it. I think you may have missed it at the beginning, but there is a 3D printer working in the background. I started printing some things for Tom Malogny. I'm making him these little emergency front release covers. This was a batch that was aborted, and so I had to print them again. And while we're on the subject of 3D printing, I managed to blow this up the other day. This is a BTT SKR 1.4 turbo board for the Creality Ender 3, and I managed to blow. That one is fine. That one's fine. One of these. Maybe it doesn't smell anymore. One of these blew. And if I sniff here on the board, which is where one of the driver chips lives, it is very nasty indeed. Something went bang, and I don't have the time to go through this board and, with a meter and try and figure out what it is. Because replacement boards are $20 or $30, I'm afraid I have bought a new one. My bad. So there we go. The magic blue smoke escaped. Yeah, it went It really did. And I think one of these chips has a hole in it. I was looking the other day. I think one or two of them may now have a hole in them. Which, yeah, that one's got a hole in it. And I think this one definitely has a hole in it. There's a missing. It's actually a missing leg on this chip now. Like, you can't see it, but there's a missing leg on this chip, on this little chip here on the driver circuit. I don't know if the board is fine, but I suspect not. I suspect it blew a power stage, and so I've got another board on order. We'll see what happens. Adrian recently took possession of a Model Y with full self-driving, and it's made driving much safer due to medical reasons. Phantom braking is an issue, but has diminished. Not all perfect, but vastly improved quality of life. That is fantastic news. I would love to see. I haven't had anything to do with FSD now for some time, so I'd love to see what the latest iteration of FSD is like. I am super excited to see what happens moving forwards with FSD. I think it's going to be great to see more and more people getting involved with full self-driving, but also involved in alternatives to it. And yes, Jude, just so you know, the chip with a hole is basically high current, and it just blew a hole in the top of the chip. That was an arc, and it destroyed the chip, and it will no longer work. Kyle Connor has had a real bashing of them lately. I think the EV charging networks. Yeah, he's been talking about EV charging networks. Obviously, the amazing folks at ChargeWay have been discussing this for a long time, and the ChargeWay app is a great way of following and figuring out which charging stations are actually functional and which ones aren't. So we love working with them on that. We've got some more EVs that we're going to be looking forward to this year. These ones are mainly European though. So we've got loads of cars coming to market in North America, the majority of which are high-end luxury EVs, right? Even something like goodness, I'm just trying to think of some models. Basically, all of them have been high-end cars with higher-end sticker prices. But in Europe, we're starting to see some really exciting developments. So the BYD Atto 3, which has already just launched in some European markets, is going to be more available in more markets next year. BYD Atto 3, great pricing of those vehicles, much more affordable. We're going to see the new Mini EV, which is more towards a higher end in terms of affordability. But I am excited to see what Mini has done, because I loved the Mini E. It was one of my favorite cars to drive last year, and I would love to see that new Mini E. I think we're going to see a better battery pack. We're going to see better performance and all of those other cool things. I'm super excited to see that. Volkswagen's ID sedan, more of a kind of a higher end full-size sedan. It's the one that was codenamed Astro, but I don't expect we're going to see that happen with that name this year. Of course, the ID Buzz is due in in the US and Canada this year, so really excited about that. Hoping we get to see it, just the long-range version. Mind, not the short-range version. Please excuse me while I try and sort my neck out. Someone was asking, by the way, what I did to my neck. I was doing a workout this morning and I was doing weights. My bedroom didn't have any heating overnight. For some reason, we're having trouble with our heat pumps at the moment. And so I had a cold neck, and then I went downstairs into a cold family room and started working out. Did not do my warm-ups as I normally do. And then I hurt my neck. So I did a weight day today rather than a cycling day, and I'm paying the price for that. Also coming into Europe this year, the Opel or Vauxhall, if you're in the UK, Astra EV. Cracking car. The Astra has been the mainstay of affordability across those brands for a long time now, really truly affordable EVs. They are coming to Europe this year. The Astra is obviously available as an internal combustion engine model, but an electric version is now starting to go on sale, and I believe a wagon variant as well. So super exciting. I love the Astra. Also, Astra is used on many government fleets in the UK, certainly. Very popular car for pool vehicles because they're easy to drive, they're easy to repair, they're affordable. And so if the electric version can duplicate the internal combustion engine variant, I think that's going to be good. The other thing is I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with regards to driving schools, because driving schools also use the Astra in large amounts. And so I think it's going to be great to see if we're going to see a dual control Astra or anything like that. More higher end vehicle. We're going to see the EV9 launch this year from Kia. That's going to be another high end expensive vehicle. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a really good vehicle to see. By the way, if you want to support the channel, go to patreon.com/Transport Evolved. And I'm just going to check now. We haven't had any more people sign up, but if you can, that would be great. You can sign up from $1 a month. That's $12 a year, and it will really help us. We have a bit of a dilemma here. If everybody who watched the channel gave just $1 a month, we would be able to do so much. We'd be able to actually hire a second person to work with Michael on filming. We'd be able to do more long form videos, which is something we really want to do. And we'll be able to move away from YouTube as a platform. So we'll be able to just stop putting videos on YouTube, or just putting fewer videos on YouTube, and start using things like PeerTube, which is a peer-to-peer platform. So really exciting. We have signed up for PeerTube. We have a PeerTube account. There is nothing on there yet, but we have signed up for it. And also, obviously, Floatplane. We do have an account with Floatplane. Just getting it uploaded, getting stuff uploaded sometimes takes longer than we have. And we are in the process of sort of discussing how we want to make videos next year. We have previously been functioning really, focusing very hard on making large numbers of videos to keep the algorithm happy. And that has had the knock-on effect of inducing a lot of depression in me and other team members. It's a lot of stress because we've had to be working, 12, 14, 18-hour days sometimes, but it's also meant that our coverage has not necessarily been stuff that we've wanted to make, but rather stuff that we felt we had to make. We want to move away from that this year, but we can only do that if we have help moving away from from YouTube as an income stream and towards Patreon. As I said at the start of this show, we were able to pay everybody for the month of January based off of just Patreon donations. Not me, but everybody else on the team. That is fantastic. And hopefully we can make that more and more than we did. All right. So, I was hoping you didn't fall over again like you did at CES last year. It was the year before that. Yes, I did fall over the holidays. I actually did some damage to my hand. I fell over trying to de-ice my truck because my wife had to drive all the way to Sacramento to pick up elderly parents who'd got stranded there because of the ice storm. Go to Floatplane, not a P2P network. We're going to do both. We are going to do both. Don't worry. I would like to add that one of the main reasons I went with Tesla due to the charging networks. Yep. And look, let's talk about charging right now. So this year is going to be the year, I think, where we are going to see a reckoning of EV charging. The federal government in the US, the British government, the European Union, they've all invested huge amounts of money into supporting the rollout of EV charging networks. The problem is none of those charging networks have proven yet that they can categorically provide reliable, consistent service. And that is because a lot of these charging networks are being operated as businesses, and they are going with the companies that cost them the least for the hardware they need. So rather than picking the cheapest and most affordable hardware, these companies are picking the hardware that they can make the most money with. And we've seen it, Out of Spec Motoring has done some great videos over the holiday period about how some of Electrify America's newest charging stations are not functioning when the temperature is below freezing, significantly below freezing. We've seen reports of Electrify America's latest, newest, shiniest charging stations failing, even though Electrify America in August told everybody, don't worry, these new charging networks, these new charging stations are going to be great. We are going to see a major shift, I think, a major revolt in the EV charging world, because right now a lot of these charging networks are not reliable. At the same point, I don't think Tesla could suddenly and magically convert to CCS overnight. And I think, as I've mentioned time and time again, I do not support Tesla becoming the standard, because there are hundreds of thousands of EVs on the world's roads and hundreds of thousands of EVs in North America that do not use the Tesla charging standard, that will be left behind if Tesla wins over and gets its charging network converted. Also, I also don't want to be a victim of a monopoly. Right now, Tesla is the only charging network really that has that standard. I know that EVgo has some Tesla compatible charging stations, but for the most part, it's just Tesla. And I think we need to move away from monopolies. Globally, we need to move away from monopolies. It's not fair. It's not appropriate. And it's a dangerous path. I think we've proven that this year with everything that's been going on with Twitter and everything else. Thank you, Robert, for becoming a Patreon supporter. I really appreciate it. You just signed up to become a Patreon supporter at the suggested amount. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. Thanks also to Rob for your super sticker. Don't leave me behind, says Jude. If you do that, I'll need an explanation of words in one syllable on how to make the move. Float plane, we will make an announcement when we actually move more of our content over to float plane. There's some issues in the back end that I don't understand. And again, one of the challenges to the network that we've been producing this year is that it's very easy to produce content. It's very hard to make sure that everything is distributed correctly. And I've just remembered that we didn't push our Sunday musing out. So I apologize. We'll rectify that later. In the UK, we're seeing more and more private networks rolling out. Manufacturers quietly installing 8-unit hubs at petrol stations all over. Loads going in as free charging has disappeared, and that's very interesting to see. I think things are going to get worse with charging networks before they get better, and I think electric vehicle ownership is going to become a little bit like the I think electric vehicles are going to become a little bit like home ownership. I think, right now, if you own a home, you're good, right? I'm in a very good position. I bought my house in 2019. We remortgaged it in 2020. So 1 year into our mortgage, we remortgaged it, and we went from a 5% mortgage to a 3% mortgage. And our house has increased in value by over 160% since we purchased it, year on year. So we are great. But my friends, my colleagues who rent, who don't have access to a home they own, they're seeing rent prices go up by 10, 15, sometimes even 20% year on year. And those people are being priced out of the rental market and not given a chance to buy a house, especially with interest rates going up as they are now. Interest rates on mortgages are not the 3% they were when we remortgaged this house, and we have no intention of moving anytime soon. One of those reasons is because of the mortgage and the value that we have accrued in our home. And I think the same is going to be true for EVs. You will either be able to afford a new EV, the prices are going up continuously. And I think this is going to be a reckoning, something we have to start reckoning with in 2023. We've got countries around the world now. We are going to start seeing prices of charging networks going up. We are seeing the price of EVs going up. Car companies are not interested in making affordable EVs right now because they're interested in hitting their quota. in order to be able to sell gas guzzlers. And until the bans come into effect, a lot of those car companies, they do have a roadmap, but it doesn't rely on people switching over to EVs as soon as they can. And we have YouTubers like Hoovy, who did another video yesterday talking about his F-150 Lightning's battery dying after he sold it. We have videos like that and negative impressions of EVs and EV ownership continuously flooding the global consciousness. It's going to be very difficult to see that transition happen. Those who can afford it will make the transition. Those who can afford a brand new EV will make the transition. They will be happy. They will save a lot of money. Those who cannot will not, because right now we're not getting support from EV manufacturers beyond kind of 3 or 4 years of ownership. I mean, Nissan is a great example of that with the Leaf. We saw the Leaf, great car. The Leaf is a great car. There are precisely 4 or 5 people I can think of around the world who are working hard to ensure that people can continue to own a Leaf well beyond its original warranty period. Dala is at the top of the list with his excellent EV channel. You should go and watch that if you haven't already. You know, he does battery upgrades for original Leaf owners, putting in much larger battery packs, putting in aftermarket CHAdeMO charging, making EVs affordable by keeping those older models on the road. But most people, most automakers are not interested. Even Tesla is not interested in that. It wants you to buy a new one. Adrian has a kind of final thought to add for the charging network, which is you're correct about NACS being dominant, but frankly, they might win simply because the others are bad. Also, do they actually make money is a business. That is a charging business. I think Tesla may now slightly be making some money from its charging. I know it said it didn't want to, but I think it probably is now. I would be surprised if it isn't. But you know, long term, I think we need to see more people. Who needs the Professor Umbridge treatment? I missed that. Professor Umbridge was obviously. I told you not to present me any more Hoovy videos. Can't take his negativity. Yeah. The last time the housing crashed, the banks turned off the money taps. Nobody could borrow. And I think we may be in a situation again with that. And, you know, the EVs, I think EVs are only going to take off if we see more affordable models. Now, someone asked earlier, what about VinFast? And I did leave VinFast. It was on my list and then I forgot to mention it. The VF8s, deliveries have just begun of the VF8s in North America. Again, it's that higher end model. It's that middle class, upper middle class EV. And I don't see very many affordable EVs. I think, by the way, 2023 is going to be the year that we say goodbye to Sono. I'm going to predict that Sono is going to end up in the car lot in the sky. I think Fisker is going to have problems. I think that Lucid may have some issues. I think Tesla may run into some issues, but for different reasons this year. But I still think that the Leaf is not horrible. No, I don't think the negative stereotypes. Excuse me, that did not help my neck. I don't think the negative stereotypes about EVs originate from the Leaf. They came long before that. And look, the first Leaf, I've owned 2 of them, right? So I feel like I'm qualified to talk about this. The first 2 Leafs were cracking. 2011, a car that could rapid charge on the freeway and go long distance, that was unheard of in 2011. And the Nissan Leaf offered those things. And I think, you know, it's all very well and good to look at EVs from a high-end, wealthy perspective and go, yes, but it doesn't have the right charging standard and the batteries are not properly cooled and Nissan clearly wasn't looking after its long-term owners. I think, you know, at the end of the day, thank you, Jean-Eric. Thank you very much for that. It's very kind of you. I think at the end of the day, I think Leafs and cars like them need to exist. Because if we want people to afford to be able to drive electric, those low-end cars need to be supported and need to be praised for what they offered. A lot of people, maybe this is a good chance for me to kind of go off my planned kind of script here. I know last year we were very critical of the Bolt EUV. Very affordable electric car from Chevrolet. Chevrolet is one of the few companies that's trying to make affordable EVs. And we criticized it not because it was an affordable EV, but because when you compare it to the original Bolt, which was more expensive, things that were changed in the Bolt EUV that didn't need to be compared to the Bolt made it feel less robust, less durable. And so that is why we talked about that. And as Ben says, the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, he still owns one. It is a great car. I am very fond of that original Mitsubishi i-MiEV. And by the way, another shout out to Ben. If you haven't seen his excellent open source video, he actually got the Mitsubishi i-MiEV working as a vehicle to home system that he built himself. Incredible. Go and watch his videos. They're very short. I'm going to ask Ben to put it up in the chat so everyone can see it. But again, these cars, these affordable cars are really essential to us converting everybody to electric. Right now, I have lots of friends who got behind the wheel of an affordable used EV or a plug-in hybrid or a range extended EV that are now able to go up to more expensive vehicles, not because of some magical thing that happened, but because they were able to save money on ownership, because that vehicle costs them very little to run, because they saved money on servicing costs. And that's how I went from a £2,000 city runabout with one seat with a 2.5 kilowatt motor, as I have been corrected. I said previously it was 4, but it was 2.5 kilowatt motor and a 36 volt lead acid battery pack. That was my first EV. And I was able to upgrade using money saved from that vehicle to the next vehicle, to the next vehicle, to the next vehicle. And if we want everybody as a community to make that transition to electric, we need to start sending messages to automakers. Look, hey, your fancy full-size electric SUV is great. I love the fact it has a 300-mile range, but the reality is people don't need 300-mile ranges in everyday use. They maybe drive 40 to 50 miles every day. If you are somebody who drives more than 50 miles a day, you're an edge case. You're an edge case based on national statistics in the US, and you're definitely an edge case based on national statistics in Europe. If you drive more than 50 miles a day, and I probably do, it's probably because you live out in the country, as I do. It's probably because your nearest city is a fair distance away. And so, yeah, maybe you might need a more expensive vehicle. But we need to actually revisit how we design our communities. We need to revisit how we design charging station infrastructure. We need to call on charging providers to use appropriate charging infrastructure. Having rapid charging stations at an airport is pointless. If you have an airport parking lot, like a long-term parking lot with rapid charging stations in it, that is pointless. Having the rapid charging stations in the cell phone waiting area away from the airport, where it's become a thing in North America since 9/11. Instead of having parking necessarily at the airport, they sometimes have short-term parking, but it's expensive. You have a cell phone waiting lot where it's maybe a mile or two away from the airport, so that the person you're picking up calls you and says, hey, I've landed, come pick me up, and then you drive over. Having rapid charging stations there makes sense. Having low power, slow charging stations at long-term parking for airports makes sense. As Benjamin said, even level 1 charging can make sense at airport long-term parking, which is what we used to have at PDX until they upgraded it. If you drive 200 miles a day, you have no need to carry the weight of a 400-mile battery, even if you think you do, says Richard. And this is exactly the point. I try and drive our Chevrolet Bolt with a B when I can, rather than driving the truck, because the Bolt, we did a trip in it this morning. We did 16 miles and we used 4 kilowatt hours. If I drove 16 miles in the truck, I would use twice that. energy. And this is about energy efficiency. It's about resource management and resource use. The only car I can afford is the MG4, but I want a longer range with LFP batteries. Yeah, that's another prediction for this year. LFP batteries are going to become more common. Lithium iron phosphate, obviously benefits. They don't contain cobalt. They don't contain nickel, and therefore there are lower environmental concerns and lower human rights concerns about using those battery packs. And that's something we're going to see Ford is doing. It's pushing over to LFP batteries this year as a way of lowering costs. And also, as Anonymous Freak says, we really need to improve charging at low income and multifamily housing. People in apartments often can't charge at home. Even people who own condos without assigned parking have a hard time. And this is the point, right? Two of my colleagues, I don't think they'll mind me saying that. Two of my colleagues rent. They both own plug-in hybrids, not because they weren't ready to make the switch to electric, but because they don't have reliable access to charging. And that's a very challenging proposition for many people who rent. And as prices of rental properties go up and up and up, we're starting to see issues with charging because people are not able to find places to charge. And a lot of the low power charging stations that were active, 2011, 2012, you went to any city in the US, pretty much, there would be at least a handful of low speed charging stations, often free. Now, they are falling beside the wayside. They've been vandalized. They're not being kept up. Some of those early charging networks no longer exist, or they've been acquired, and they only had the higher power stations acquired and not the lower power stations. This is why Adopter Charger and Kitty Adams are so important. If you don't know about Adopter Charger, go and look at Adopter Charger. It's a great website. It allows you to adopt a local charging station, to donate money to help ensure that charging station stays online and active, and if you wish, free. Without access to low power charging stations, a lot of early EV owners are SOL if they don't have charging at home. A lot of the earliest great budget EVs, I'm talking Fiat 500e in North America, I'm talking Chevrolet Spark EV, early Nissan Leafs, a lot of those cars, Mitsubishi IMEVs, didn't come with rapid charging as standard, and you had to pay more to get them. And those cars, the ones without rapid charging, are the ones that are base price right now. Smart for 2 ED, another example. The Smart for 2 is a particularly difficult example because those early Smart for 2 EVs, and I have a friend with one, require plugging in, and they require to be plugged in when they're not being used, because it is a design flaw with those cars. Despite them being great fun drives, if you leave them unplugged for extended periods of time, it can actually brick the battery pack, and then you're left with a car that you can't use. So having access to off-street parking and charging is so important. And I think that's something that we need to see a reckoning on this year. So rapid charging networks like Electrify America and some of these other big charging providers, they need to up their game, or they need to be held accountable. And saying, well, we're putting in new charging stations doesn't cut it. We need to see those charging stations activated and reliable. And the problem is always parts. I'm going to tell you a quick story now. Please excuse me while my neck is really very painful. It's making me feel slightly nauseous. I'm going to do my best to keep going. These rapid charging networks need to have the same approach to spare parts and whatnot as we try to do here at the channel. So just last week when we had the power cut, we lost one of our power supplies in our server, our main server called Kennedy, after the Kennedy Space Station, Kennedy Space Center, and we have all of the shares on that are named after the shuttles. So we've got Atlantis and Columbia and Challenger and Enterprise. And we don't have a Discovery, before anybody asks. We don't have a Discovery. But we have a big 45 drive server, and it's got a redundant power supply with 2 blades. And one of them broke, which resulted in the server making a horrible whiny noise out of the server room that's audible around the house when it failed. And I didn't have a spare power supply, which I should have purchased so I could just replace it and then order a new one. I've ordered 2 online, was able to order one before the end of the year, found some used ones, and I need to buy new ones. That's one thing for me as a small business owner. But if you are a multi-billion or a multi-million dollar charging provider, you should have all of the serviceable parts that you need on tap, available right there, right now. Now, I might not have had a spare power supply, but I'm going to show you a couple of things that we do have spares of. This is a spare. This is a spare display port to Apple display connector, and this is a spare HDMI to display port adapter so that we can run the Apple displays we have behind me off of computers that don't have Apple display ports. This didn't cost a lot for the business. This is a spare. Michael is using the other one when he works away from the office. But we have a spare. So if one of them breaks or it goes missing, we can just use it straight away, drop it in and use it, because time is money. And if you have to stop doing the thing you're doing to fix the thing that's broken, you have a problem. And all of these charging networks need very desperately to make sure that they have that redundancy planned in. And saying we've got multiple charging units used to work when there were fewer electric cars on the road, but when there are so many electric cars on the road today, we need parts availability. Wouldn't having some solar PV on EVs help preventing bricking in an EV and powering some of the accessories as a Tesla Sentry mode? Yeah, you could put solar panels on EVs. We've seen it before. Nissan used to put a solar panel on the very early Nissan Leaf. It helped trickle charge the 12-volt battery, not a lot else. But you know what? I owned a Nissan Leaf with a 12-volt battery and, sorry, with that little 12-volt solar panel on the back, and it still sometimes bricked itself, the 12-volt battery, not the main traction battery. Solar panels on EVs are going to become a thing, but it's not going to happen this year. At least I hope it doesn't, other than Aptera. Aptera is an edge case. Yes, Aptera, brilliant car, and I cannot wait to own one. Like I say earlier, I don't think I'm going to be able to. I still want to own one. The Sono Xeon, again, solar panels all over that thing. Fantastic, but there are some engineering challenges to all of that. So some more predictions for this year. I think solid state batteries are going to become the norm. I think battery prices in general are going to continue to rise. And I think that's going to have a negative knock-on effect to EVs and EV battery prices and EV prices for some time. I think it's also going to cause problems for cars that have been damaged, broken, need a replacement battery pack, whatever. I think that's going to be tough. David says, oddly enough, I lived in apartments and we could find them with garages, so plugging in as possible just tends to be in newer apartments. Yeah, I mean, my first apartment here in North America, I know somebody who watches this channel knows where it is, because they told me in a comment. But yeah, I lived in a townhouse apartment complex and we had charging in the garage. We actually put in a charging station. That's kind of unusual. I want an Aptera too. Perfect car for under 30,000. Amazing range. Yeah, I think everybody wants one. But whether we will or not, I don't know. Just in time supply methods should have no place for critical infrastructure. Yeah, you need to maintain an inventory for the inevitable. I mean, look, a great example of what happens when you're not prepared for redundancy was what happened at Twitter last week or the week before, when Elon Musk bragged about turning off all of these servers, and he called the Twitter infrastructure, what was it, a Rube Goldberg machine of infrastructure, and he just decided that for whatever reason some of the servers were not needed, turned them off, disconnected them from the network. A few days later, Twitter went down, partly because it didn't have that additional backup infrastructure. So I think it's very important to acknowledge that when we are providing a service and you're in the service industry, having a backup is really, really freaking important. So the other thing that I want to discuss is the rise of electric bicycles and electric scooters and electric micromobility. I think this is the year that we're going to see electric bicycles. They already became the number one electric vehicle in Germany. We've already started to see that even in North America. Electric bicycles are outselling electric vehicles in many US states. I think this is the year when we're going to see that really take off. I think we're going to see more and more people start cycling. And hey, that's a good thing because it means more people are going to be able to get to work without using suck, squeeze, bang, blow, and that is phenomenal, especially if you live in a major city. But there are some hurdles. First off, mass transit systems need to adjust to accommodate larger bicycles. A lot of electric bicycles are larger than their pedal counterparts, and they don't fit in bicycle racks that were designed for pedal bikes. So we need rail operators, bus operators to start taking that into consideration with the accommodations that they make on mass transit. If you cannot put your electric bike on the train, you cannot put your electric bike on the bus, you're not going to take your electric bike. And I think we need to see that we need to see more adaptations made to accommodate electrified micromobility. We also need, I think personally, we also need to see some more legal framework put in place so that people know what scooters are legal, what bikes are illegal, and which ones are not. I'm not someone who feels necessarily that regulation is the end all and be all of this all, because it's a gray area, right? I own an electric scooter that is technically illegal. But I also know if I ride it on the road in a way that is not going to draw attention to myself, I'm probably fine. It's only if I try and drive down the road at 40 miles an hour and I'm weaving in and out of traffic dangerously that the local cops are going to actually bother to have a problem with me. I would love to see, for example, next year, electric unicycles really take off. There are some great affordable models coming to market. I would love to see those vehicles become more socially acceptable. And if you make people treat them like a motorcycle, you have to have a license, registration, insurance. You have to be accountable and ride them in a sensible manner. That doesn't mean riding them on the street, that on the sidewalk or the pavement. That means riding them on the road with everybody else. I think you're going to see more adoption. If you can buy an electric scooter that does 40 miles an hour for $1,000 or $2,000, for example, and you put a license plate on it and you give them the requirement they have to wear a helmet and they have to have indicators and has to pass a roadworthiness test, suddenly you've created a new affordable way for people to travel around major cities that doesn't involve suck, squeeze, bang, blow. And I think that's something I want to see more of this year, more grassroots campaigning. And yes, this is something that Transport Evolved is going to be kind of leaning heavily into this year. The affordability and the accessibility and the equity that is currently very much missing in the electric vehicle world. We need to make sure that we don't continue the kind of the trend that we have been, where electric cars are getting more and more powerful, they're getting bigger battery packs, but their prices are remaining the same because of this arms race to beat Tesla, to beat other companies, to be the best, the fastest, the quickest, the most obscenely powerful. I think we need to step away from that. And now is the time to do that, with inflation still high in many parts of the world, with affordability for transit stupidly high in large parts of the world. The only real way we're going to see that transition towards a cleaner, greener, safer, and smarter future is if we embrace the change that's happening and make transportation more equitable. One of the things I've wanted to do for a long time is set up a charity where we train people how to maintain and work on and support the burgeoning electric vehicle infrastructure, rather than it just being high-end automakers with $100,000 cars. I would love to see that happen more this year, and I hope you will as well. It's something that we want to address. We want to make more we want EVs to be more accessible. And so we are going to look at more accessible solutions, necessarily away from cars in some context, and asking some more tough questions about why are electric scooters still banned in large parts of the world? Why are we not seeing more infrastructure that encourages the use of electric vehicles, like micromobility solutions, like scooters, like bicycles, like electric unicycles, rather than just focusing on cars? And I think until we, as a society, move away from cars as being the primary source of travel, I think we're still going to struggle. Because in many parts of, I think something we haven't really discussed, and I think we need to discuss it before we leave today, and maybe this is going to be my final thought for you, because I told my partner I'd be done by 1:30 and it's coming up to 2, is the fact that there will be a core of internal combustion engine owners who will refuse to transition if they cannot get the affordability right, if they cannot get the performance or the driving pleasure that they get from internal combustion engine cars, that they cannot do the DIY repair. And I think something that governments around the world have not kind of grokked yet is, if we're not careful, we will be in a situation in 10, 15 years' time with internal combustion engine cars that we see in places like Cuba, where cars are still operating today that were designed 40, 50, 60 years ago, that have been kept on the road because of in the case of Cuba, it's because of sanctions, right? Sanctions. You cannot sell cars to Cuba. You cannot export cars to Cuba because of all of these things that Cuba as a nation, or rather its government, did for many, many years, and are still doing in some cases. And so what we had is, rather than Cubans kind of rolling over and going, okay, we can't have cars anymore, they went, okay, we're just going to keep the old internal combustion engine cars that we were able to legally import on the road and functioning. And you end up with Cuba having some really amazing, bright engineering minds keeping cars on the road that would otherwise have been junked years ago. Until we are in a position where EVs are affordable and truly equitable for everybody, I think we're going to be back in that position where internal combustion engine cars will just continue to exist on the road for as long as you can buy fossil fuels for them, because people will not be able to afford EVs unless those prices come down. And there will be a burgeoning cottage industry of people keeping internal combustion engine vehicles rolling for years and years and years and years and years. And I would like to think that the lack of economies of scale will make gasoline very expensive in the future. But there are plenty of other ways that you can power a suck, squeeze, bang, blow, whether it's, gasification of wood, whether it's other fuels that you can combust. And I think that's potentially what will happen if we're not careful about how we move towards an electric future. I think it's a very interesting and problematic issue that we will need to address in the next few years, or we will not be able to facilitate this move towards electric. The other thing I want to say that we need to see more of this year, and I'm worried that we're not going to, is more mass transit, more encouragement of mass transit, more deployments of affordable electrification, whether it be railways, whether it be trolley buses, whether it be trams, to get people off of using fossil fuels for personal transport and using a reliable public transit system that is safe, that is affordable. And I think that is something we need to start seeing more progress on. Obviously, in the US now, we've got a split government. We've got, the Senate is controlled by the Democrats. The Congress is going to be controlled by the Republicans. I think it's going to be a very complex thing moving forwards. Thank you for joining me for my predictions for this year. I hope that you enjoyed it. I certainly did. It was 90 minutes worth of fun on my part. If you would like to see us do more of this, please let me know. I would love to do more live streams moving forwards. If you want to support the channel, please go to patreon.com/Transport Evolved. I would love to see more of you donating and supporting the channel. That way we can move away from having to rely on the YouTube algorithm and all of the bovine byproduct that comes with. Some people are asking about mass transit is getting bad in the UK. There is one reason for that, but I'm not going to get political. I would love to see more of you getting on board and interacting with us on Mastodon. You can do that by going to you obviously need to have a Mastodon account if you do not already have a Mastodon account, but then you can follow the show at mastodon.transportevolved.com/@show. That is the official show Mastodon account. If you want to kind of interact with me outside of Transport Evolved, a minor journey at mastodon.lol. That's my personal account. That will include everything. I have my own blog at aminorjourney.com. You can read it if you want to see my inner workings of my brain. And if you want to follow just the kind of the electric car stuff, the clean, green, safe, smart transport and energy stuff, follow the show at Mastodon, but then follow me by going to mastodon.transportevolved.com/a minor journey. I have 2 Mastodon accounts. The reason being that my personal account allows me to be a little bit more kind of off the clock. The A Minor Journey official A Minor Journey a Transport Evolved account is me just doing Transport Evolved stuff. And then the show one is basically for everyone. Everyone at the company has an account at mastodon.transportevolved.com, and only people who work at the company get accounts at that. We have our own server. It is cool. It is fun. So go ahead and give us all of those follows. Mastodon is a pain. Mastodon is a pain to get an account on. I know that there's been some issues with certain accounts. But if you go to, there are some great lists and there are some great servers and there are some great tools to help you transition away from Twitter if you want to do that. Oh, look, we just had a spam account. We're going to block the user. I do apologize for that, everybody. That's my first spam account on a live stream. So go figure. Anyway, I hope that you have an amazing rest of the day. Thank you for joining me. Normal service is going to be resumed later this week, and we've got some more traditional videos coming your way. TEN this week is going to be a bit different. We're going to have to record it on Thursday morning, and it will be edited Thursday and Friday. It will go out on Saturday, but it will miss anything that happens Thursday and Friday, basically, because I am going to a convention this weekend. And after having not had the holiday the way I wanted it, I really need it. I'm going to a convention this weekend up in Seattle. I'll be at Anthro Northwest. If you are coming to Anthro Northwest, if you're a member of the furry fandom, come along, say hello. I don't mind saying hi to fans. I'm doing a couple of panels. I'm doing a vocal techniques performance panel where I discuss how you can sound like Queenie Octavia Christina Dearheart or Jimmy Jagger Fox, yeah. And I'll also be doing some panels on fursuit handling, how you look after mascot performers when they're being surrounded by lots of people in a large open space, and how you make sure that they don't get mobbed. Thank you very much, Dan, for becoming a patron. You can still not too late to join Patreon at patreon.com/Transport Evolved. I will also be doing a panel on gender performance. It's going to be great. Wesley says what you have to understand is that if they look at it is if they use car sharing, they get more people per dollar into a specific space with the minimum expenditure of their dollar. Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it? I don't think that's going to remain the same, though, to be honest, long term. Anyway, thank you. I will say hello to Queenie. I know she's currently downstairs in pieces. Her tail had some holes in her, and I've got to go and wash her now. So that's my afternoon. Washing a border collie. Not a real one, a fake one. And then maybe washing the real one as well. Anyway, thanks for joining me. It is wonderful to be here. It's been wonderful to have you here. And if you haven't already seen the amazing trailer for the Kia that's coming your way very soon, please know it's going to be coming right now.